Welcome, everybody. So as I was saying before I hit record, we're going to talk about communication today. We're going to talk about ego today. We're going to talk about what's making all this come together in terms of this breakdown in our communication skills and our communication styles, and how to rectify it, not only so that we can start creating a better relationship with ourselves, but we can create a better relationship with all beings. And the reality is, as we see on Facebook, most especially, but also in our personal lives, at least with one other person, and probably the majority, is that most people have very dysfunctional communication styles that border on a lot of defensiveness, irritation, and so on and so forth, negative attributes. And the problem with that is not only does it disengage us and disconnect us from one another, also creating harm and hurt, oftentimes not even meaning to, but it does. But by the way that we communicate inside the world today, there's no way that we can create a new paradigm, a new paradise, a new earth, and a new world by the communication styles that we have deployed right now. There's just no way. And if we start to move in a trajectory of focusing our attention on the things that we want to have inside of our lives, right? The new world, the new earth that we want to have within our own reality, and create a new timeline together to be able to move and shift into another dimensional reality, then we have to come to the table. The table would be how we speak within ourselves personally and how we speak with one another collectively, so that we have the skill set, the tool, our tools inside the toolbox to be able to relay information to one another in a way that promotes a quality of life and a feeling of goodness and thriving within not only our individual but also in our collective selves. So, and whole. So when I myself, when I'm on Facebook, it's like this really, like a big, tank in which I'm in, where I just like, today at this time, am I going to use my skill set, or am I going to just say fuck it and throw it out there and just, act out or get caught up in a drama or get caught up in something that's a little bit out of my control and it gets into chaos. And so that's how I approach my time on Facebook. And, man, it offers a plethora of opportunity to really hone in my skills or deny myself the access to acting out on my better version of self, right? So our communication styles are at this point in the utmost importance in order to build forward. Poor communication equals poor paradigm, okay? And poor paradigm, which is what we're in now and we want to break free from, is built on brokenness or a feeling of brokenness, excess, dysfunction, and powerful negative attributes, right? So most communication is based more on talking rather than listening, arguing rather than discussing, teaching rather than learning together or sharing, being right while making others wrong, because you can't be right unless somebody's wrong, expressing anger or negative thinking rather than declaring love, operating out of praise, and offering comfort to each other. Communication, it seems to have become a battleground, and many assertions for control and power. And the reason why is because people ultimately feel very disempowered. They have been feeling disempowered since the beginning of their lives. And so communication is one way to gain the upper hand, but it's not a healthy way. It's an ego-based hazard zone. Or worse, it's like a minefield, and it's designated or designed to entrap and belittle and twist most things out of context in order to validate not ourselves, but validate our filters over living in innerstanding and witness to ourselves and others in unfoldment. So in order to yearn for a new world based on higher principle, higher values, and higher character, it becomes inaccessible when we don't change our thoughts and our words and our actions to move to loftier ideals. Okay, when we're expecting change and adjustment to happen by all the external forces and remedies, it excludes ourselves from any and all participation in being the rise of change. That's why so many the truthers that are truthing both global issues and also spiritually are saying that we are the change. And everybody on this phone knows that we are the change that has to happen. So we can't look for the change to happen in the external world. If we do that, we'll continue to stay within this paradigm, and we're going to continue to be desperate and disappointed. So essentially, we are all still perpetuating illusion because we are asserting that all changes live outside of ourselves when every bit of change inside the world comes from within ourselves, which means that ego is at play. So ego dominates most interactions until we can rise beyond the limited consciousness that ego provides and maintains. The ego is a construct that seasons or diminishes personality. I really want you guys to hear that because that's so accurate that ego is what seasons or diminishes our personality. And people say, well, ego is personality, but I'm not going to agree with that. Okay, we have our personalities, but it doesn't have to be with looming ego. When we are obedient to this dominant, flawed, and fragmented aspect of the non-human equation, so I want you to hear that. Ego is the non-human equation, and I'll get into that a little bit more. We are living unskilled outside of the soul and the higher witness of the heart frequency, immersed in lower conscious totality. Ego means energy granting oppression. And all that is energy is either stuck or it is in fluid motion. So ego is energy stuck inside of our allowing our oppression to exist and display itself both in the internal and external worlds. So in truth, ego is a virus that is generally a minute system running amok, living out of control, creating chaos, creating havoc, creating mayhem, and poor wisdom in a world saturated in a severe lack of clarity. And we see that every day with people. So our immediate task is to sit with our ego and give it a voice. So we could do that on paper, we could do that in recording, we could speak aloud until we can uncover ego's triggers, its wounds, and the traumas and our beliefs built around the traumas, the fears that we are holding, the suffering we are carrying inside, the rage that's inside of us, the insecurities that are beating us down, and the doubts, and all parts of ourself that encourages ego to rise from the sub and unconscious depths to display itself like a rudimentary child, or I often see the ego like a male peacock all feathered out and fanned out, demanding chronic and constant attention to itself. Attention that stems from many varied reasons based on each person in any given moment. So the more ego a person operates out of actually indicates more insecurity and less self-confidence, more doubt and less certainty within. And the more we must declare our fabulousness and our successes, the less we are apt to feel that we are indeed great and successful, and probably feeling we are really nothing very much at all. Because the larger the ego, the more worthless we feel within in our internal self. And most people do. Most people's ego, the larger it has to do with insecurity and doubt, but then there are other people who are just more narcissistic, sociopathic, and psychopathic, and therefore their ego exists because that's who they are. It's not a part of them. So ego compensates for our lack of self-worth or our lack of conscience ordinarily, and it accounts for all those unhealed traumas and sometimes just very, very poor guidance from others when we were growing up, and therefore cultivating this ego virus that came out of some form of trauma or neglect. Now, ego, and a lot of people will disagree with me, and I don't care, but this is what I've come to throughout the years and through much, much research, and also just really understanding with wisdom the human condition today. The ego is very much an adversarial creation within the human construct. So beyond the initial id, that initial id that isn't a looming presence, ego grows based on all sorts of traumas and wounds and through neglect. And just a lot of people don't understand that neglect, when we're neglected by our families or whatever, even ourselves, it's a form of abuse, and it creates traumas and wounds. So traumas and wounds through neglect, through creative beliefs, by not learning the truth of who we are, by being denied the knowledge of who we are, by being denied or denying our own gifts and talents and skills, our spiritual aspects, our souls, all of which is granted to us daily by the nature of the beast systems that govern every aspect of our lives starting at birth. See, that's the thing, is that our ego, it can become triggered at the moment of trauma due to our birth in itself. Because trauma, actually happens as far back, particularly now in these more modern decades, the last 2 or 3 decades. Trauma happens in utero with the ultrasounds, because ultrasounds are the waves that permeate through the water, and that's very, very difficult for the fetus and the embryo to deal with. Also invasive, baby in utero is invaded by chemicals. It's in what mother uses, what's in the environment, so on and so forth. The thoughts that our mothers have and carry, and the words of our parents that are spoken around us. And at birth, we are born oftentimes in a hospital, which is a chemically saturated, irradiated, fluorescent birth. We are poisoned immediately by strangers. We're handled by strangers. We're kept away from our mothers, and etc. The facts are we don't know life without challenges. We don't know life without separation or neglect or trauma or fearful experiences. And toxic behaviors are all around us. And then eventually it's within us. That's what happens. Trauma triggers our small id egos, and when trauma happens, it mushrooms out of control, like, for instance, candida. So we are born with candida, and it's in a small amount, and it's there, so that when we die, the candida can come in and devour our bodies quickly, efficiently. If left alone, it will just take our bodies, and that's nature, okay? So we're born with that, and it's there. Now, the problem is is that when we eat poisonous foods or sugars or processed salts or chemicals, alcohol, drugs, the chemicals we wash ourselves or use in our house and everything that's around us, or stress, will trigger the candida to grow, and then it becomes out of control, and then it begins to savagely host on us. We are the host, and it just eats away, depleting our health on every level. Candida depletes our physical, emotional, and mental health. And it's actually eating us alive, literally. And that's why people with candida, and almost all of us have it now, are at some level of inflammation and illness. Can't have cancer unless you have candida. Okay? Now, ego is no different. It just, instead of like candida that comes from the body and just goes ahead and starts tanking the physical, emotional, mental, ego, it just comes from the mind, harming us on all levels. So it becomes from the mind and the emotions and the physical body as well. So one of the things I want to say is and share is that the seed of all ego actually derives itself from the 7 deadly sins. And I do not want anybody looking at this in a religious way. Okay, just going to talk because this is the language we have right now. So it comes from the 7 deadly sins, and the 7 deadly sins derive from the predatory mind or the beast system. And all of the archetypes and occult practices and agendas are all structured and created by the predatory mind that rules over us. And that creates an energy that grants our oppression, right? So the predatory mind that rules and has been ruling over us is creating the energy that grants our oppression. There's ego. The 7 deadly sins are 7 viruses that feed off of us in order to feed the archonic energy grid system that we're living in, or what we call the matrix, or what we call the harvesting farm that we are. So essentially, they are harvesting us. And they're harvesting us through our thoughts, through our emotions, our feelings, and feelings and emotions are a little bit different, but so that's why I put them both in there. Our words, our actions, our conduct, the way we feel about ourselves, they feed off of all of it. The 7 deadly sins, those viruses have been planted inside of us in order to feed the archonic host frequency that is operating this very black occult matrix. So that's so keynote that we must carry with us and have knowledge of at all times. Now, the 7 deadly sins are wrath, greed, gluttony, lust, envy, sloth, and the father of all, pride. Okay? Wrath, greed, gluttony, lust, envy, sloth, and pride. And the thing is here is that most humans are operating almost always out of one of the sins, because ego is mostly ruling us day and night until we are able to learn how to move into love, the frequency of love, peace, harmony, and equilibrium. And once we're able to engage more in that stream of consciousness, ego has got us by the cojones. So, for instance, when we get angry, you can just have anger. People say, oh, no, there's got to be other stuff. Sometimes you could just get angry, okay? But most of the time, it usually is because there's some level of fear, or there's pain, or there's something that got triggered from the past that is unhealed. Okay, it's not always, but most of the time, there's where that anger is. However, wrath is like a volume of anger and rage that goes from that healthy, motivating anger that we need to have to an outrage, to an insidious virus filled with contempt and hate, and then unbearable anger, all mixed in, that fire, that unhealthy, out-of-control fire. And that's ego, or that's the wrath. So, in fact, all of the 7 sins are ideas and their thought constructs and their beliefs, behaviors, and choices that are easily triggered. They're causal of addiction, they're habituated, they're insidious, and they're fundamentally addictive. They are addictive. And they are created by severe imbalances in the heart and the mind, the body, and please hear this, they are the absolute denial of our soul's access to freedom. So the 7 deadlies are an absolute denial of our soul's access to freedom. And when our souls are leading us, when they're not leading us, these viruses run out of control, and they destroy our lives, and they lead us into chaotic hell. So when people say, God, it feels like it's hell on this earth, well, it is. That's exactly what it is, because hell is running the earth, chaos is running the earth, mayhem is running the earth. We see it with the COVID. We see it with the riots and every drama that they keep stacking on top of every drama. It's the chaos. And if we continue to submit to the chaos, then we continue to submit to the paradigm of these viruses running the show. And that is the 7 deadlies. So the 7 sins are viruses from hell seeding, and they're also frosting our lives in the terrible destructive energy and forces. They were implanted in us, Wetico. They are nurtured by the traumatic forces in our lives. They are nurtured by the false voices in our minds and the chaotic feelings that are often present by illegitimate, the feelings that we have that are often present is pretty illegitimate, because most feelings rise in relationship to thought, and most thought comes from triggers rather than a rational, reasonable equilibrium, right? Thoughts follow beliefs. Beliefs are created from illusion. And illusion comes from deceptive forces. And so even our emotions can betray truth in a big way. Or I would say feelings, because emotions are energy in motion, and we want energy always in motion. But feelings can really betray us, because oftentimes our feelings are born from something else other than what's going on in the moment. So essentially think of it this way. First comes along the deceptions and the lies. And then second, we're brainwashed into these illusions that are taking place. And then third, beliefs begin to take position inside as a truth, designing who we are becoming. So the beliefs are actually designing who we become, and what we think, and how we feel, and then how we act. Now, fourth, beliefs and illusions get triggered by any thought that's outside of the belief, bringing on a destructive or many destructive feelings that either are to protect or argue with or buffer the illusions and the lies, and not argue with the illusions or lies. We're trying to hold on to them. So the pain that we experience from somebody else coming in with their beliefs, tapping on ours, the pain comes from our brainwashed minds trying to discern and or judge, but claim the belief and the challenge to the belief to make the other faulty, wrong, because we feel that what they're stating is perilous to us or perilous to the beliefs that we're holding. So 5, the thoughts take hold, and they're usually negative, in order to hold the beliefs in place. And our thoughts and others' thoughts, the predatory mind thoughts, all come in to hold that static negativity in place so that, or to hold those beliefs, that static negativity and the negative beliefs in place, because it's all built on illusion. Now 6, reason's gone, rational's gone, equilibrium is completely unheard of, and then what we do is we feel chaos. We feel we've leveraged everything out. Everything inside of us is renewing that old trauma system that we've got inside of us. The trauma is fixed in place. It is unhealed, and it's disallowed, right? Okay, because when we're traumatized, how many of us in that moment go, I'm in trauma, and now I'm allowed to have my feelings about it? Oftentimes when you're in trauma, you're in survival, you're trying to navigate the waters, you're trying to survive in that moment, and then when it's all over and you try to talk to somebody or you're trying to deal with it, and somebody comes along and they tell you how to behave and how to feel about it, how to think about it, and what to do with it, right? They start trying to navigate and manage you, right? And then what happens? Okay, if a boy is traumatized, we tell him, you can't cry. You're a boy. Buck it up. If you're a girl, you can't be angry. Be quiet. Sit down. Stop it. We're taught not to scream. We're taught not to speak. We're taught not to be heard. We're taught not to be known. We're taught not to feel, not to think, not to be human, not to be alive, and not to feel essential. We are stamped denied. We are ignored. We get judged. When we're not acting appropriately to somebody outside of us, we get punished. We get controlled. And then we get rewarded. And then we get punished again. Isn't that what's happening now? Isn't that what everything they're doing to us now? Let me cause the problem. What? You need something? Oh, you need me to solve this problem? Even though I caused it? Okay. I'm going to come up with a solution now. I'm going to reward you with a little bit so I can punish you some more. And the predatory mind, that's how it operates. You all know that it does. And our parents and our grandparents and all the generations before us are trained through the predatory mind to do the same damn thing. So all we keep doing is exasperating and growing the problem and having babies so that we can experience family, so we can experience and give love, so we can nurture, and all the reasons and dreams why we have family. And we do the same damn thing to our children that was done to us. And it keeps growing, right? Because chaos is always, always, always swirling around us. And it takes hold of us, and it begins to move through us. And it creates more beliefs that are erroneous. And it creates that, I call it the cabal, the 3-monkey cabal, right? We don't want to hear you. We don't want you speaking, and we don't want to see you, right? The 3 monkeys, and that's in there. And they created that. They put those monkeys out there. It's right on Facebook. We always, or in our phones or whatever, we're always using it. We don't want to hear you. Please don't speak, and we don't want to see you. Okay? It's all predatory mind taught to our ancestors, passed down, period. And when we can't take any more of it, when our small id just bursts open, because it cannot hold it together anymore, ego takes control. It's part of the mind-soul split that happens. They say that we are body, mind, spirit meaning they're not talking to our souls, they're just talking to our heart space, that space where we contain our spirit. But that means that our souls are denied. our souls are stamped denied. They're pushed aside from the very beginning of our lives. And so so we're no longer fourth dimensional beings operating. We're trying to be third dimensional beings, body, mind, and heart. That's what happens. And when we can't take it anymore, we start to just bust through. And when we start busting through the small id, our egos are just screaming. They're screaming. Because we are being MK Ultra'd into a mental, physical, emotional split from our souls. So the ego erupts and grabs a hold of anything there is to cleave to. It comes in as like the seven dwarfs, everything in seven, the 7 days, the seven sisters, the seven celestial planets outside of the earth, seven, the construct of seven, the 7 deadly sins. Wrath, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, sloth, and pride. All false pride. Degrading pride, that degradation that holds all of the 6 sins in itself into this framework of this matrix, this dark, black, ilky, gooey matrix feeding off of us like a vampire. And in one sense, it kind of fills us up for a moment. Because in actuality, when we're told, hey, I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear you for sure, and I don't want to know you, I don't want you speaking, go away, be invisible, and retraction occurs. And we start to pull back and sink into ourselves. But in a lot of ways, because we're not living through who we are, when we are denying our souls access to speak and guide and teach and lead and bring our wisdom forward and bring our spiritual skill sets forward, then we become empty. Because we're becoming empty of ourselves. We're becoming empty of who we are. We're becoming empty of our nature and of our truth and of our energy frequency. And we become empty of meaning and of purpose. And we don't have realization. And we lose our joy. And we forget that there's love in the world. And on and on and on. And so we grab into life what is most available. And some people will take on, and what's most available are the sins, are the 7 deadlies. Why? Because the predatory mind is at work. And the predatory mind has a hold of our parents to a degree, and our grandparents, and our neighbors, and our friends, and our teachers, and everybody, our employers, and our coworkers. It's out there. It's in there. It's in the world. Wetico, right? And so we grab a hold of anything out of these 7 deadlies, and we can grab a hold. Some grab a hold of all 7. You see them in the prisons, and others might grab a hold of 1 or 2 or whatever, attaching to any excess, and all excess is lethal to our soul's mission, our soul's calling. And when we're online, and we're talking to our truthing friends, and we're saying, hey, take a look at this, or hey, what do you think about that, or to people that aren't yet awake or are in some level, because we're all in some level of wakefulness. We're not all, none of us are woke. I hate that word. But we see it. We see how lethal and damaged we all are, because even when I say, are we ready to rise, and here's a way to rise, I'll hear crickets. Oh, what do you mean I got to give up my chemical? Well, that's a way to stop destroying yourself so that you can think more clearly, and your pineal gland can start working better, and and you'll be, and so the access to actually being the change, again, is stamped denied. And therefore, if we're not willing to be the change and we stamp it denied, we're not allowing our soul's mission. We aren't accessing our purpose. And then people run around going, I wonder what my purpose is. I wonder what my purpose is. And I can scream into the wind, your purpose is to wake up. Your purpose is to awaken all of your fourth dimensional parts of yourself, letting ego go, and bringing it back down to the smaller id so that it's not running the show. Your soul can step forward. You're waking up not just to all the terrible truths of the world, but most importantly, you're waking up to who you are and letting all the garbage go and all those insecurities and all those doubts and everything that takes you away from the self-confidence and the self-knowingness and the self-realizations and the self-actualizations. So to counterbalance the 7 deadly aspects of excess and faulty characteristics, we must go to and nurture the opposite aspects of all the sins, and that would be the 7, or what they call the heavenly virtues, but the 7 virtues. And again, I repeat, this has nothing to do with religion. This has to do with attributes. These virtues are aspects of our nature, and they're aspects of our denied nature, and this denied nature is the illusory nature. That's what's been put on top of us. That's what's dedicated to our ego, is the illusions that create this, what seems to be natural, but it's not. It's stamped denied. So the virtues come forward when we start accessing them and focusing on them, then we begin to access our true nature, right? So our true nature would be to be beings of charity, or to be beings of prudence, which is abstinence, kindness, which is faith, fortitude, which is diligence, justice, temperance, which is patience, and humility, which is chastity. So in order to balance that, you would use, like, say, when Tracy makes me French fries, that is my thing, I get a little gluttonous. I can't just have 5. I got to have 25, so I get a little gluttony going on. So it's important that I use abstinence or prudence, at least for my butt. In order to temper the envy, we use kindness and faith. Sloth, the opposite would be fortitude and diligence. Greed, we would use justice. Wrath, we would use temperance or patience. And lust, we would use humility or chastity. And pride or vanity, we would use charity. It's vital that we translate one for the other, modulating ourselves by seeking equilibrium, moving out of the oppressive nature, seeking more buoyant nature, living cohesively in the center of any extreme level of polarization. And we talk more on that later, but remember in the last call I was talking about that you have the Luciferian and the Satanic, and that the Satanic is of the dark nature and the Luciferians of the light nature, and it is the divine prime creator incorporates, and so that we are gods in and of itself, and therefore we hold both the light and the dark within us. And when you are the absolute, the omnipotent, you can rise above both poles, adjusting yourself to the middle road where you're accessing all of it, but also rising beyond it. Not above it, not below it. That's their paradigm, but beyond it. And that's what we want to be doing with both the deadlies and the virtues. But obviously, it's more important if we could just focus our nature on the virtuous side of things to balance and temper out all that's been in operation. Because even if we haven't wanted certain things to be in operation within us, based on the traumas and the unhealed wounds, they are in operation. Ultimately, things like defensiveness and control and insecurity and anxiety, fear and all sorts of things, and unhappiness with ourselves, all are part and parcel of the ego operating out of control, harming us. So the virtues help us to move out of that and balance more in the soul essence, bringing our soul forward so that our souls are more in guidance and leadership and wisdom within us. and at the same time remembering that we are living in a human presence. And so operating fully and completely out of soul would be a little bit counterproductive to being human, right? Because all we have to do is die, and then we return fully back to our soul, allowing it to be free. But we want to bring our soul forward. We want to have our humanity. We want to be able to have our darkness and our light, and we want to move beyond it until it's all incorporated and encompassed, and we don't have judgment of it, right? So in order to move into and create a new paradigm, a new earth, our ability, and see, that's ultimately what we want to be doing, right, is we really want to be creating a new paradigm. We really want to be creating a new earth. But our ability to interpret the world without feeling threatened, without using filters that are born out of the illusory world of deception, out of all the traumas that we've sustained on one level in some way or another, we've got to have very easy, very honest, and clear communication. We've got to have that skill set and those tools and patience and loving conduct in the middle of everything we say, first think, then say, and then do, in order to build and bring ourselves forward into an ultimate and higher paradigm. Okay, so I'm going to speed this up a little bit. All right, so to give legs to healthy communication skills, one of the great things that we can do to put legs underneath us is actually to follow the 5 agreements, which I will say most of us epically fail within a day at least one time. Now, the 5 agreements are this, and I'm going to go through them really quickly, but the first one is to be impeccable with your word. Okay? That's important. That means no gossip. You must be kind and speak kindly to yourself about yourself, and to others about themselves, and to others about yourself. You must be impeccable with your word. We must speak with dignity, and we must give our word and then keep it. We must be our word of honor. It is so vital. Okay? That's how we build trust. And trust is the truest part of ourselves. It's our innocence. It's our brightest spark within. But we can't have it if we're giving our word and then breaking it to each other. We're giving our word and breaking it to ourselves, right? So we must speak consistently with dignity and integrity. And we must never use silence or denial as a weapon against ourselves or others. Number 2, don't take things personally. And if you want to just jot these down, as I'm saying, you don't need to write all the meat down, but you could say be impeccable with the word, number 1. And number 2, don't take things personally, because I'll ask you where you might be feeling like you're a little bit stronger, a little bit weaker. But don't take things personally, okay? Because here's the thing. It's not about you, right? Most of the time when we're taking things personally, the other person's looking, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about me. All right? So it's not about you. Stop projecting shit onto others. Stop being so narcissistic, and we all are to some degree, and do everybody a favor. But if you're thinking something that somebody's saying when it's your turn, ask them, hey, I'm wondering, are you saying this? And the person hopefully is a nice person, says, no, that's not what I'm saying. Oh, okay, what are you saying? Well, this is what I'm saying. Okay, cool, thanks so much, right? Doing check-ins. 3, don't make assumptions. And I see that as you see me screaming on my page, stop assuming things about me, because we make assumptions about our families, our friends, ourselves, strangers on the street. We're just hosting a shit ton of stories. So just never create stories about yourself that aren't true, and don't create stories about others, because you just don't know. In fact, most people don't even know who they are, what they're feeling, what their stories are. How the hell can you know, or I know, what's going on with somebody else unless they know? And then don't speak for others. Don't ever speak for others. Others can speak for themselves. So allow people their own voice. Allow people their own words of truth, and whatever. Don't argue, because there's no need to argue. Again, use the check-in if you don't know. 4, do your best. Always do your best. Be the best version of yourself. Don't make excuses for not showing up. Don't procrastinate. Don't operate out of any of the 7 deadlies. Just step it up. Give it your all. Be the best version of yourself. And if you feel like you can't, if you feel you're just too weary, too tired, you can't take it, you want to scream, you want to give up, tell you what to do. Be quiet. Just go to quiet and relax. Take the rest that you need. Calm the mind, calm your spirit, and then come back to it, okay, when you can do your best again. And the 5th agreement is use healthy skepticism. Definitely be discerning of yourself. Most importantly, have insight. Be skeptical of anything you hear. And definitely don't go to cynicism, because cynicism rots you at the core. Just operate out of an impeccability that you can be honoring and proud of yourself in a true pride and of dignity. And so once you are mastering the 5 agreements with yourself, you then can proceed on to learning how to communicate maturely, appropriately, and most importantly, with love. So those are your 5 legs that you can operate from, and always check in. Am I being impeccable? Am I taking this personally? Am I assuming something? Am I making up a story? Am I doing my best? And am I using healthy skepticism, or what I prefer to say is using discernment? And then once you know that, and you can just check in on that, here's the steps to start moving forward in healthy communication. Because really rarely do people have strong, healthy communication skills, as we've been talking about. So the first thing that you want to do whenever you're engaging with somebody, whatever it is, if you're writing a comment, if you're putting up a post, if you're on the phone, if you're texting, if you're sitting next to somebody, whatever it is where you're engaging, decide what's most important to you at the time that you're sharing. So ask yourself, do I care about this person? Is this person important to me? Do I value my time with this person? Do I value relationship or this moment? Just even in this moment, you may never see this person again. So that's the first thing you got to note and ask yourself. The other, you ask, am I operating and allowing dignity for myself and others? Okay, am I remembering the 5 agreements? Am I remembering, and am I willing to operate out of the 7 virtues right now? Am I going to allow myself to build strong my character and operate out of a commanding character, one that is not of any kind of control or dominance, but a character that moves with free will, free range, and honor? Are you operating through your soul, and are you operating through your personal truth that doesn't have to do with any old trauma, right? Because the trauma is always that kicker that engages, filters, and all sorts of stuff. So those are the questions that one must always ask themselves when they're starting to share with other people. The second step is your heart clear to speak wisely? And is truth your friend right now? Because if your heart is not engaged to speak wisely or to be of truth and honor, again, be quiet. Don't speak at that time. The third step, and one of the most important steps to be beyond managing what you say to others, because as we know, words cut like a knife and they shred us into ribbons. And emotional pain is more severe than any physical pain. And every word spoken is every word remembered. And where men do not remember as well as women, because women have very, very long memories, men may not remember the words, but they remember the pain. And so we all have long memories. And it is wise to make the choice to be the better version of yourself and speak quietly or don't speak at all until you can speak wisely. Then the next thing, and the most important thing also beyond that, is really in communication is to learn to listen well. Most people don't want to listen. In fact, most people on the call, when I'm talking this long, they're researching, they're posting on Facebook, they're going to the bathroom, they're picking their nose or whatever, because listening's a hard thing to do. But it is the most wonderful gift you can ever give to A, yourself, and B, another. Okay? You have to learn how to listen well, because most people, what they do is they listen to speak. The moment that they can attack and come in and counter you and argue with you and defend themselves and all sorts of dysfunctional stuff, that's what they're listening to do. But when we learn how to listen to hear the other's heart, when we learn to listen to hear the other's soul and the other's pain, when we are not in the way of anything, we become the greatest gift and the best friend a person could ever have. And let me tell you something. We all need a best friend, and we all need this gift of being heard and acknowledged in this world. And in that, we go to number 4, and we never cut anyone off. Never. Right? It's not your turn unless somebody's running on, and then you say, hold on, I can't anymore. I can't hold my attention. Okay? But we don't cut people off. Okay, so the 5th thing is we learn how to mirror. There's one person on this call who is actually quite excellent at it besides moi. I don't know all of you, but that's Keegan. And is very good at it. He just operates at that level where it's just merged into conversation until he cuts you off, and then you got to snap. Hey, Keegan, stop. But mirroring is the excellent tool, my friends, to keep yourself from arguing with anybody. Okay? So I'm going to quickly just run through how to mirror. We can do all this later or on the site or whatever. But mirroring will save every single person an argument, okay? Because in reality, like I said, all people at some level feel powerless, and they just want to feel powerful. And they want to, meaning empowered. They just want to feel empowered. And the greatest way to allow somebody to feel empowered is to first listen to them and hear them. The next way is to validate and understand them, right? That means you have to get the hell out of your way and out of their way and allow them the space to unfold and just accept and love. So in mirroring, there's a person A and then there's a person B, okay? So the person A might have an issue or a concern or a problem, whatever. But A comes to B and says, can I speak to you? And B says yes. And they stop everything that they're doing and they pay attention. They listen well. And A speaks and B listens without interruption. Okay? So A will share what's going on, whatever the feeling problem is, what their need is, what their desire is, and their feelings about it. You know, what they're feeling without blame. Okay? And then B will mirror. Then when they're done, they'll say, I'm done. And B will say, mirror what was said with understanding, being calm, being patient, and using caring tones while not just parroting, but acknowledging and including A's feelings. And when B's done doing that, I ask A, is that what you said? And if A says, yes, that's what I said, then you can proceed on, where B would then say, okay, is there anything else? And A would decide, yes, there is, and go ahead and speak it, and then the whole process begins again. Or A says, no, that's it, thank you so much. And then B would then go on and talk themselves and share anything that comes up to that without defensiveness and without any use and without any accusation. Just share their thoughts and their feelings, and then stop and let A mirror back by acknowledging the same way. So it's just back and forth until it's done. And oftentimes when you get into a groove where both people, particularly in relationships or with our children or whatever, when we're utilizing this approach, you know what happens? We stop fighting, we start listening, we get to understanding, and when it starts flowing in our conversations, it just becomes a part of the conversation, and then everybody's just feeling real good because they're all getting validated and understood. Because here's the thing. In the end, when we were infants and we were born and we were taken care of by our parents, hopefully we were the children that when we cried, our parents came and they figured out what was needed, diaper change, food, cuddling, whatever that is. And we got it and we were fulfilled, right? We learned how to feel in our power. We got validated. We were understood. However, that being said, many of us were raised under the rule of thumb that, oh, you never run to your baby because it's coddling them and it's spoiling them and blah, 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 and they need to learn how to be on their own. And so what happens is that the baby begins to lose trust and faith in their power, that when they speak, they can't be heard. When they have needs, they're not going to get met. They're going to be left lonely, to be alone in their pain and their suffering, their dirty diaper, the hunger, or whatever. Okay, that's when it begins. And so we are not mirrored properly from the beginning of our lives most often, not all the time, and therefore what we need most of all is to feel and know that we're validated and heard. Because people, like I said, they feel powerless and underheard. They need validation. That's the primary thing. They need that understanding and caring, and they need soft tones. They do. They need really nice body language, because body language and tones is 80% of every conversation. So however your eyes are rolling in the back of your head, or you're flinging yourself around, or, you're getting loud, whatever, you just stopped all the validation and you moved into what is actually violent communication. So when we mirror, we're having conscious communication, and then what happens is we circumvent ego. There's no longer control. There's no longer the possibility of the 7 deadlies to come in. We are operating and allowing the 5 agreements to take hold, and we allow our souls and our hearts and our minds and our bodies the need to express themselves. And like I said, don't ever speak in you. That's a problem. Like for me, when I write my articles, sometimes I'll be a you will come out, and I always edit back and change it to us or to we, because I'm not pointing my finger. I don't want people to hear like, oh, she's telling me this, and it's like, no, I'm meaning in general. So what I do is I take it to general, right? It's really, really essential that we talk in I's. I feel, I think, I need, I desire. I is the safe word, because it removes all blame, it removes all accusation. Another thing, these are a few things not to ever do in communications. Don't ever use the words would, should, could. Those are blaming words. Those are pointing the finger. Don't make people small so that you can feel big. And again, using you in general is not anybody on this phone or this call. Okay, don't advise anyone without being asked for advice. Never, ever do that, because, and this is, people want to fix other people, and the reason why is because we feel uncomfortable. We feel uncomfortable in somebody else's emotions or their quandaries, right? And so we want to fix, especially men, right? Men love to fix people. They love to fix things, right? The door is broken. They like to go get their screwdriver and fix it. And then they take fixing the toilet and the door and the motor and the engine and this and that and the guitar string or whatever, and then they try to go fix their women. And it doesn't work. Women don't want to be fixed. People don't want to be fixed, because when people are trying to fix other people, the person they're trying to fix feels broken. And here's the thing, people aren't broken. The world and the systems are breaking down. They need to be broken, but people aren't broken. Now, they may be lost, they may be confused, they may desire guidance, but they need to ask for it. You see, we need to be the lamp in the middle of the night so that people can find their way out of the dark. And the lamp is not unsolicited advice. The lamp is validation. The lamp is understanding. The lamp is a compliment. It's praise. It's helping somebody to achieve something. It's allowing yourself to listen very deeply to what somebody's saying and not have to come back and fix it, but just to be a witness and to be present. Don't speak to others who share about themselves and make it about you. That is what most people do. They make everything about themselves because we're narcissistic. It doesn't mean we're narcissists. It just means we have narcissistic tendencies. It's just important to listen, to offer comfort without unsolicited advice, to mirror, and remember that the moment is not about you. The moment is not about any one of us. You know why? Because the moment is about love. And however that love unfolds, then that is the moment. And that moment might mean you take center stage. But then we have to move and balance and share. And then the last thing is, I think the other thing is I want to say is that to apologize. A lot of people don't want to apologize. They think that their pride is just too much for it. If you're going to bark, go. Okay? But apology does not ever mean that you're wrong. Because remember, we don't live in a right and wrong paradigm when we're moving forward. That's the old paradigm, and that's the one that we want to break down. So an apology is not because I'm wrong. The apology is just that you're sorry that the other person is hurt. You're maybe sorry that you might have done something to hurt them. But it is not because you're wrong. And in fact, an apology is for warriors. And non-apology are for cowards who are operating so vastly out of ego that they could never come down out of their pride to say that I'm sorry. It does not mean you have to say excessively, I'm sorry, because that, again, is ego. That is shattering ego. You just apologize and say, I'm really sorry that you're hurting. I see that you're hurting. How can I support you? Okay, that's how it works. And then compliment the heck out of people. Compliment, compliment, compliment. Compliment, compliment, compliment. Always praise. And you know how we always say, well, I was just giving you constructive criticism. And ever since I was a little girl, I just kind of squint my eyes and go, when the hell did criticism ever get constructive? Right? Criticism is criticism. There's other ways to provide information without breaking somebody's spirit or hurting their feelings. Okay, so again, I'm going to repeat, body language is 80% of language, especially tones and facial gestures. Always remember to talk in love and peace, in accord. Smile, man. Be tender. Hold somebody's hand. Touch the shoulder. And really fuck the 6-foot distancing rule. The mask itself is all about taking away identity, and we can't see each other's language. We can't see their face. We can't see anything. And so we can't identify 80% of the way we talk with each other. Throw off the mask. It's ridiculous. Everybody's got to ask people, drop those masks, man, because that's really, see, that's the thing. We're all running around behind all these masks, the know-it-all, the clown, the this, the that. We got to drop our masks, and we got to just come to the table authentic and real, because that's where our beauty is. And another thing is we need to know people's love languages, okay? And we got to act on each other's love languages, not act on your own because to give it to the person who doesn't operate out of your love language. Like Tracy's love language is, and a lot of men, but his love language is he likes a hug. His is physical. So he likes a hug, or if I take his hand or stroke his arm or whatever and look in his eyes, and I don't have to say anything. That's enough. My love language is words of affirmation. If somebody tells me something really nice, I just beam. I get all goosey, right? So Tracy, what he does is he gives me a hug. And I'm sitting there wanting him to say something nice to me. Right? He's giving me his love language. Right? I go and give him hugs because that's what he likes, and then I also am talking, which is what he doesn't like. So it's about really learning each other's love language and finding out what that is. There's several different love languages. I'm not going to talk about them now, but you can Google them and write them down and go to your friends, go to your partners, go to your children, go to everybody that matters to you and say, what is your love language, right? And for me, I like all of them, but I got them in priority order. A lot of people like most of them. So just figure it out, get everybody put in priority order, and then start meeting people at their love language. And just remember, again, I'll repeat, the world is not about one of us. It's not about just us. It's not about our rightness. It's not about our ego. It's not about our greatness. It's not about us all. It's about the individual formed healthfully inside the healthy collective whole. It's about each of us together, one at a time, each important, each vital, each alive, validated and heard and seen and witnessed, wholly, with dignity and honor, peace and love, all engaged in operation, in movement, in fluidity. We have to learn how to balance our energies. When one gives most on one side, we lose that balance. The other takes the most. The other gives the most. That happens in a lot of relationships. And then equilibrium is lost. So it's really important for our relationships and for ourselves to move back to center, because energy has to be reciprocal in order to find harmony. And that doesn't mean it has to be 50-50. That's truly a lie. There are times where one person needs a little bit more and the other person has more to give. It's just really about seeking the balance between the two energies. All right, so we now have gone over what are good co-partnering communication skills and how important they are. I hope that people go back over this and take notes and listen to this, because, you know, if I were to die tomorrow, which will never happen, I will have left, hopefully, especially through this recording, a lot of life skills that are necessary and vital at this time. Because the reality, as I stated at the top of my talking, is that there is no way we can move forward and build a new vision of a new future and a new world without operating in that level of skill set. The reality is that the majority of information that we have been given in our lives on this planet at this time is an illusion, and therefore we don't want to bring the illusion forward, and we're not going to know exactly what to bring forward because we don't want to bring all the shit with us. But what we can bring is how to communicate with each other and how to love and how to operate through peace, because if we don't got peace going on inside of ourselves, we don't got peace in the world. That's just how it works. And I'll tell you a little bit before I move on, because we're going to change up here, but in the wild, when an animal is attacked and it doesn't die, it goes away and it hides. It finds a very, very soft place to hide, a little safe, little, enclosed, little cave or a little log, or, in the ground, in the hole, or behind the trees, or whatever it does. It finds a very, very safe and oftentimes dark place to go and rest and heal. What an animal does when it gets scared and is injured and is attacked is it goes and shakes. Its body, its brain, its nervous system knows inherently that to release the energy of the fear-based reality it just had is to shake. And shake and shake. How many times has something happened to you and you started to shake? You got scared or you got so angry, or, that momentary, cars coming at you or whatever, and then afterwards you're shaking. And how many times then do you tell yourself, oh, stop shaking? You don't need to shake, just calm down. Well, the truth of the matter is we are inhibiting our ability to move the energy healthfully through our physicality so that it doesn't lock in and form into dis-ease. It doesn't become part and parcel of physical unwellness, mental or emotional unwellness. So the animal goes and it shakes, and it might shake for a couple of days. It might shake for a couple of weeks. It doesn't need to eat. It doesn't necessarily need to drink. It needs to rest. It needs to be in the dark. It needs to be quiet. It's internal. They are internal. They're not dealing with external stuff. And they just allow all of that energy to run through their nervous system and out through their hooves and out through their eyeballs and their ears and everything else or whatever, is going on for them. And when they're done shaking, they are revitalized. And they get up and they go out. And you know what the coolest part of it, and this is why animals are so freaking cool, is that once they ride through the wave of trauma and they're releasing it, because where are they laying or inside? They are in the mother or on the mother completely, and they're giving it and shaking it away into her beingness. They're letting it go. They don't have to consciously think about it. It's what they do. It's natural. So they let it go. And then they go out and they're out in the world and they go find their herd or they go find their pack or whatever they do. And they go to the water's edge and they sip a little bit of water and then they go nibble on a little grass or little leaves or whatever they do. They start nourishing themselves physically. And they start nourishing themselves in their social lives again. And they're not holding on to the trauma. It's integrated. They have integrated and surrendered it. And it's left with the mother, and they move forward. And unfortunately, with animals, they might have an event, and therefore they attend to the event by nature. We humans are so bloody traumatized and abused that we don't have an event. Many of us have many events, and many events stacking on top of events. Like right now, all the events that are coming at us with the trajectory of the Luciferian forces that are at play right now. And so we are being systematically, and they know this, traumatized over and over and over and over, and we can't come up for air. And when we can't get a grasp and a handle on it, we start traumatizing ourselves, because we're in trauma. We don't have that time to go away and tuck ourselves in a tree trunk and shake for a couple of weeks and dispel it. But we do have to find ways to let it go. We have to put our bare feet on the ground. We have to, not just on it, we have to put it in it. If you go to the woods, you just hug a tree. You put your bare feet near the tree. You put it on the bark. Put it in the ground. Walk into the water, onto the sand. Bury yourself under the sand. Whatever you got to do to be connected with the mother, do it as much as you can right now. Okay, because that's going to bring balance. Go to dark. Go to dark. Spend time in the dark. Turn off your lights and rest. As I say to you guys out here, I sleep on the ground. People say, well, you want to get your bed back? Oh, hell yeah, I want to get my bed back. And I'll probably find myself sleeping on the ground again. Because for me to get that, now that I've been doing it for so many years, I don't know that I can be without the connection to the mother. Okay? And that's, people say, how have you survived with your illness and everything outside, doing your thing, doing all that work? Because I'm with my mother, and I give a lot away. So let me encourage you, wherever you live, to do that. And I know right now, Radek, you're going into your winter months, your cooler months, but I also know you go outside in nature and take the walks with the dogs. Please do everything you can, even if it's like laying your belly down on the ground and putting your hands in the ground, even if it's your hands, right, if your feet are too cold. So whatever you can do to connect. Also, people who are in houses, don't forget you can put a 2-foot copper pipe down in the, hammer it down into the ground, wrap a copper wire, put it through a window or whatever you can, and then wrap it around your ankle at night. As long as there's no seismic stuff going on, there's nothing going on the earth that is would be too much, and go to sleep. Sleep with the copper, because that way you are grounding. Okay? So to move on here, because I'm talking too long, the vision of this group was to come together for many reasons, but it was to really move into building that new future, building the dream. And in the reality, if you look at it, everything in the reality of a dream, because it is, we are like walking through a dream. And the problem is, and this is a problem, is we're living in a plane of existence that could potentially be like so amazingly beautiful all the time. And and don't use extreme words when you're dealing with communication, by the way. But it could be predominantly a beautiful life experience here. The earth is glorious. She has all the resources that we could ever need. Anything that we would need for illness or disease or imbalance or whatever, it's here in nature. You see all the time where animals and humans come together. Animals that come together that don't naturally coexist healthfully, the cheetah that takes on the gazelle, humans that meet with lions and hug, and bears and all sorts of things. And without the training, but just creating an environment where we can come together and cohabitate lovingly with each other on this planet. That is what this plane of existence was, I believe, truly, by witnessing nature, what it was all meant to be. And then the predatory mind came in and decided that they wanted to rule where humanity, it coexisted largely in love. And so when the predatory mind came in and started separating and dividing, creating chaos, creating mayhem, separating and dividing, all the stuff that they've been doing, they are doing, now their ultimate totalitarian, regime that they want to bring in. Well, anyways, whatever. So the knowledge is there that how we could and we're meant to always live with each other. Look at humans. Look at humans in so many regards. You put a girl baby next to a boy baby, they love each other. You put a white baby next to a black baby, they love each other. You put a Christian baby next to a Jew baby, they love each other. Love is where it's at, right? Whatever. You put a kitten with a puppy and a little bird, they love each other. Out here on the ranch, when I first moved out here, everybody had to cohabitate. And so I put the dog bowl out. And I don't know where my pictures are. I'd have to find them. But there's the Great Pyrenees Guardian dog with a big old white fluffy head sticking their head in the food bowl. And right next to them is the white bunny. Her name was Freedom, and she's eating out of the dog food bowl, along with Hermes, the turkey that was eating out of the dog food bowl, along with the chicken that was eating out of it, and, of course, the goat and the pig coming in and going, I want to eat out of it. Everybody had to live harmoniously together. And they did. And it came naturally. I didn't train them. You see, all of life wants to cohabitate in peace. And there's only one faction of life that does not want peace. They want rulership. And we don't have to have that. So in order to move forward, we have to change the paradigm. That means we have to dream a new dream. And order to dream a new dream, we have to want to dream it together, and we have to do so with dignity and integrity for all. And that means we have to listen to each other, and we have to hear each other. And if we're not doing that very well, we have to check in with each other so that we can. So that's why I did the call today on the communication, because A, we're struggling in our group, and B, until we can start to understand how to do this with each other, we can't dream the dream together, right? So what I want to do is I want us to start working on, no, working is not the correct word, start playing with each other on dreaming what it is we want beyond the 5 words that all of us use. Well, I want peace, I want love, I want happiness, I want money, and I want my health. There's 5 things. We got to go well beyond this, because dreaming the new dream is every part of how we want to live. Is it a community? Do we want a garden? Do we want to have these kinds of homes and build this way? And how do we remove the toxic load? And how do we get around? What's our transportation going to be like? You know, do we want it to be of the stars, or do we want it to be of the trees? Or, you know, what is it that we want to do? How do we want to coexist in relationship to this group of people, or this community of people with that community of people? And what do we want our language to be? Because we know the English language is completely riddled with spells and curses. So it's symbology being taken and twisted and contorted. You know, how do we see gender? How do we see color? How do we see, do we want religion? Do we need religion? Do we need government? Do we not want government? Do we want currency? What kind of currency do we want? How do we want to use our energy? Because in the end, everything is energy. Everything is frequency. Everything is vibration. We are only matter to a very slim degree. As I keep repeating myself like a broken record, we are 99% empty, and in that emptiness, we are 99% intelligence, and we are 99% frequency. And so the 1% is matter. That's how little we are matter. And so when we design and dream the new dream together, which we have to start doing now, it's important for us to come to the table knowing I'm 1% matter, and so all of those constructs around matter fall away to a degree. To a degree. It isn't all the way, because we have the 1% matter. And that 1% matter still needs to eat and sleep and to experience certain things and do certain things. But we are feeding 1% of ourselves. So if you think about it, and we talk about globally that 1% is the ruling class and the rest of us are here, and out of the 99%, you got this percent and that percent for all these different equations, but we always go to the 1%, the ruling class, the predator, the predatory mind, right? And yet, when you think about yourself, it is the 1% of matter that takes all of our attention. I'm hungry. I've got to go to the bathroom now. My nose itches. My eyeball hurts. I'm getting a pain. I got to go for a walk. I want to feed this. I got to have a cigarette. I need a drink now. Okay, where's my pill? All right, I'm tired. I've got to go lay down. Let me go watch TV. I got to go for a walk. My foot hurts. You know, it's monkey chatter inside of the 1%. We live our lives, 99% of us, for the ruling class, 1%. We live our lives for the 1% of our matter. We are feeding our matter as if it is a God. But the God is not the 1% matter. Our God, the God within us, is a 99% emptiness. It is the intelligence. It is our frequency, and that is who we are. And so when we go into the new paradigm, it might not necessarily be that we give up our 1% matter, right? Ascension, they are screwing up this whole ascension conversation because the ascension is just to understand who we are in the 99% frequency intelligence. And when we start ascending into that truth within ourselves, because the ascension is really within, then we can come together and create the new dream, honoring the 1% matter, but not excluding the 99% of who we truly are. And that's where all the light and all the dark coexist, commingle, and are entangled within us. That is the voice that we need to be listening to, the 99%. 99% of the time. And then the 1% will get acknowledged and be fed and rest and do all the things that it needs to do for health. So having that knowledge and having that awareness, my loves, is what's going to be allowing us to move forward into creating the new dream. The new dream must come from having quantum imagination. It is about taking ourselves. Remember, Krista Ray, when you wake up in the morning, you feed the inner child, right? And you wake up, and while you're creating the new dream and you're using your quantum imagination and you go into the inner child, that trusting, innocent, playful, exquisite joy. Because that's our exquisite joy. And we ask, what would you like? And I would tell you, I want a hopscotch, and I want to play bombardment, and I want to have a big old sandbox, and I love swings. I want to have a life, and what I'm saying is, I want to have a life filled with absolute abundant play and joy, because that is really what it's meant to be. And people say, no, but you grow more out of abuse and trauma and drama and crisis. Well, yeah, you may grow faster out of it, but it doesn't mean you don't grow out of joy as well. You don't need to, it's again another lie and another illusion to make us believe that we need suffering in order to grow. And it's another illusion to say, well, we only came here to grow. That's what life's about. No, actually that's not true. We came here to live. We came here to live. They came here to control us. We believed in their control. Essentially, our souls came to live. Ask any baby. It did not come into this world saying, here, put the chain on me and lock it. The baby said, what can I play with? What can I do? What can I create? How can I imagine? How can I laugh? How can I be? How can I enjoy everything? You see, we came to live. So let's go ahead and debunk. We came here to just learn and suffer and learn. We came here to be who we are. We came here to enjoy matter. We came here to enjoy foods and hug trees and enjoy the shade and enjoy the sun and jump into the river and climb the mountains and do all sorts of wonderful things. We came here to have sex with each other. We came here to make babies together and have families and to laugh and be friends and have dinner parties and whatever it is, we did. We came here to be with horses and dogs and cattle and not eat anybody but berries and fruit. And I'm not a vegetarian or anything. I wish I were again. However, that being said, that's really what we came here for. And we got away from it because we were taught and trained a different way of being. We came here to enjoy our matter, and we came here to live through our 99%. So it's time for us to dream the dream on how to live our lives with everything. And that includes growing, right? That includes expanding and becoming more and more knowledge. But we don't have to always suffer to do that. Okay, now I'm repeating myself. So I think I've covered it all. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to just go ahead and come off the call so that I can just go ahead and stop the recording. Everybody take a break. Go get something to drink or whatever you need to do. Let's come back to call in a minute or two. And then I'll have some questions, and we'll open up the phone for discussion. I hope you took it all in. I hope you made notes, and we'll move forward. And I thank you all for giving me the time and listening well to me.